I spent $3,500 helping my cousin's wedding. Set up the venue. Paid for the photographer. Right before the ceremony, she whispered, "We just needed a workhorse, not a guest." I nodded, left quietly, and took back what she never knew I owned. I spent a whole lot of money, $3,500, to be exact, helping my cousin Sierra have the perfect wedding. I coordinated everything, from the venue to the photographer, and I gave up my own time and energy to make it all happen. But just as everything was about to come together for her big day, she whispered something to me that completely shook me. "We just needed a workhorse, not a guest." Those words stung. I had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and this is what I got in return. In the moment, I nodded and walked away quietly. But what happened next was something she never expected. I took back what she never knew I owned. I've always been the dependable one in the family. You know the type, the person everyone turns to when they need something, no questions asked. It's like it was written in my DNA. I didn't mind it at first. I liked being needed. But lately, it felt like my contributions were starting to go unnoticed, and I was beginning to wonder if I was just the backup plan, the last-minute fix, or the person everyone relied on because I never complained. That's how I ended up where I was on the day of Sierra's wedding. Sierra, my cousin, was always a little high maintenance, but she was family. We grew up together, and I always thought we had each other's backs. When she called me 2 months before her wedding, I didn't hesitate to say yes. She was in a panic, telling me she needed help with everything. "I don't know what to do, Sophia," she said over the phone, her voice trembling. "The wedding's in 2 months, and we're nowhere near ready. We're on a budget, and Brad's parents aren't helping. Please, I need you." I could feel the pressure in her voice, and I understood. It wasn't uncommon for weddings to get stressful, and she'd been dreaming about this day for so long. I didn't think twice about agreeing. "Of course," I told her. "Tell me what you need." I thought she'd ask for something simple, like some advice or maybe a little help with the decorations. But no. What she needed was way more. She needed a miracle worker, someone who could pull off a beautiful wedding on a shoestring budget. I was that person. I took on the responsibility of booking the venue, hiring the photographer, organizing the caterers, managing the timeline, and doing all the little things that go unnoticed until the last minute. It wasn't easy. The venue she had picked was beautiful, but it was too expensive for what she could afford. So, I dug into my own savings and covered the difference, hoping it would all work out. It felt like I was investing in a future that I wasn't even sure would pay off. The photographer had to be booked last minute. It was the only one that fit her budget, but I could tell it wasn't the ideal choice for Sierra. Still, I made it happen. I even worked out a deal with the caterers to cut costs and make sure everything was covered. I didn't mind the financial strain, after all, it was for family. I watched the wedding plans unfold with a sense of pride. It was starting to come together, even though it was taking everything I had to make it happen. The day of the wedding arrived, and as I walked into the barn venue in Charleston, I could feel the weight of all my efforts. The venue was stunning, an old, rustic barn, with wooden beams and fairy lights hanging from the ceiling. The decorations were perfect. The flowers were beautiful. The photographer showed up just in time, and everything seemed like it would go smoothly. But behind the smiles, there was a tension I couldn't shake. Sierra wasn't acting like herself. She was stressed, anxious, and it felt like she was focusing more on the little details than on the reason we were all there, to celebrate her and Brad. "Sophia, can you check the seating again? Brad's mom says there's a mistake with the arrangement," Sierra said frantically, tugging at the sleeves of her wedding dress. I didn't hesitate. I checked the seating, and sure enough, there was a mistake. A simple oversight, but it wasn't surprising, wedding planning is chaotic. I made the fix and went back to overseeing everything. But as I did, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't a guest at this wedding. I wasn't an invited member of the family. I was the one doing all the hard work, and the rest of the family was barely lifting a finger. By the time the ceremony started, I had done everything I could. The guests were seated, the music was ready, the photographer was in place, and the catering team was ready to serve. I stood off to the side, watching everything unfold, knowing that my work was done. I should have felt proud, but instead, I felt a quiet, growing resentment. That's when Sierra came over to me. She was radiant in her wedding dress, and for a moment, I almost forgot the stress I'd been under. She was the star of the day, and it was all happening just as she'd dreamed. "Sophia, I just wanted to thank you," she said, her voice shaky with nerves. "You've done so much. I don't know how we would have managed without you. You've been incredible." I smiled, but there was a catch in my throat. I had been incredible. I had given up so much for this day, and yet something felt off. But then she leaned in, and her next words were like a slap across the face. "We just needed a workhorse, not a guest." I froze, my heart sinking in an instant. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. She didn't thank me like a cousin, like someone who cared about me. She saw me as a tool, a means to an end. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, trying to process what had just happened. All the effort, the money, the countless hours I'd spent making sure this wedding went off without a hitch, and this was what I got in return. I nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "I understand," I said quietly. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving the barn and the ceremony behind. I could hear the sounds of the wedding continuing, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the music. But none of it mattered. I was done. I drove home in a daze, not sure where to go from there. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but my mind was elsewhere. All I could think about was Sierra's words. "We just needed a workhorse." I hadn't realized until that moment how much I had allowed myself to be taken for granted. I had been so focused on helping her, on making everything perfect for her, that I had forgotten to take care of myself. I had sacrificed my own happiness, my own time, my own money, and for what? To be treated like an employee? I parked my car in the driveway, staring at the front door of my house, my thoughts swirling in every direction. But one thing was clear, I was done. No more being the workhorse. No more putting everyone else's needs before my own. I walked inside and went straight to my bedroom. On my dresser, hidden away, was a small wooden box. It was the jewelry box that had been passed down in my family for generations. It had belonged to my grandmother, then my mother, and now, it was mine. Inside were some of the most valuable and sentimental pieces of jewelry I owned, heirlooms that meant everything to me. I hadn't planned on taking it, but in that moment, it felt like reclaiming something that was mine. Something I had kept hidden away, just like my worth in the family. I opened the box and stared at the pieces inside, each one a reminder of my own history, my own value. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let anyone, least of all Sierra, take anything from me again. I still haven't talked to Sierra. I haven't decided what to do yet. But one thing is certain, I've learned the hard way that sometimes, the people we try to help the most are the ones who can hurt us the deepest. And I won't let that happen again. But for now, I'm taking a step back. I'm letting myself breathe. And as for that jewelry box? I'm keeping it. I took a deep breath as I sat on my bed, the jewelry box resting in my lap. The weight of the situation seemed to sink in more with every passing minute. Sierra's words echoed in my mind. We just needed a workhorse, not a guest. They weren't just words. They were a reality I'd been ignoring for too long. For so many years, I had been there for everyone, doing everything I could to make things work, to fix problems, to hold everything together. But somewhere along the way, I had lost myself in the process. I was the reliable one, the fixer, the one who could be counted on, but I had never asked for anything in return. And I had never expected the things I gave to be acknowledged, let alone appreciated. But now, I was starting to see how much I had been undervalued, and how much I had allowed that to happen. I closed the jewelry box gently and placed it back on my dresser. I stared at it for a long moment, wondering if it was just a symbol of everything I had quietly let go over the years. Maybe it was more than just jewelry, maybe it was a reminder of the pieces of myself I had sacrificed without realizing it. Sierra had been my family. She still was, in some ways. But in that moment, I realized that family wasn't just about giving and giving without question. It was about mutual respect. And right now, I didn't feel respected. The day after the wedding, I received a text from Sierra. It was brief, almost too casual considering everything that had happened. "Hey, Sophia. I just wanted to check in. Are you okay? I didn't mean to upset you, I had so much going on and I didn't know how to express everything. I hope we're still good." I stared at the text for a long time, my fingers hovering over my phone. Part of me wanted to respond right away, to explain everything I was feeling, to make her understand the hurt that had been building up. But another part of me felt like I wasn't ready to have that conversation yet. I had spent my life trying to please everyone, trying to be the person everyone relied on. But I had never asked myself if that was what I needed. And right now, I didn't feel ready to go back into that role, not with Sierra, not with anyone. I didn't reply to her text. Not yet. Instead, I spent the day reflecting. I sat in the quiet of my home, alone with my thoughts. I thought about all the times I had put my own desires, my own needs, on the back burner for the sake of others. I thought about the things I had given up, time, money, energy, and how little I had received in return. But it wasn't just Sierra. It was my entire family. They'd all relied on me. They all called me when things got tough, but how often did they call just to check on me? How often did they ask how I was doing, or what I needed? I was always the one solving problems. But who was solving mine? There was a small part of me that wanted to lash out, to let them know how much I had done for them, how much I had sacrificed. I thought about calling everyone, Sierra, my aunt, the rest of the family, and letting them know just how hurt I was. But as I sat there, I realized that wasn't the answer. I didn't want to be the person who demanded attention just to prove a point. I didn't want to beg for recognition. I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to be valued, not for the things I could do, but for who I was. Days passed, and I still didn't respond to Sierra's message. I focused on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I took time to do the things that made me feel like me again. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't spoken to in months, people who never expected anything from me, people who simply enjoyed my company. I spent hours at the local park, walking alone, letting my mind wander. I got back into reading, something I hadn't made time for in ages. I even took a weekend trip to a nearby town just to get away, to clear my head. It wasn't that I wanted to cut everyone off, but I needed space. I needed to reevaluate my role in my family and in my own life. And during that time, I realized something that surprised me. I didn't actually owe Sierra an explanation for anything. She had taken me for granted, yes, but I wasn't obligated to continue giving until I had nothing left. I didn't owe her my time, my money, or my emotional labor. And I certainly didn't owe her an apology for being hurt. I had always been the dependable one, the workhorse. But I wasn't a horse. I was a person, a woman with my own life, my own feelings, and my own boundaries. I had been bending over backward for so long, always putting everyone else's needs ahead of mine, that I had forgotten to even check in with myself. I'd forgotten to ask what I needed. And right now, what I needed was distance, space to heal, and the time to figure out how to move forward. As the weeks went by, Sierra sent a couple more messages, asking if we could talk. But I was still processing everything, still figuring out how I felt. I wasn't ready to dive into a conversation that might bring up more hurt, more unresolved emotions. I didn't want to just forgive her for the sake of family. I didn't want to let it go without addressing the way she had treated me. But I also didn't want to live in a constant state of resentment. I didn't want my relationship with her, or with anyone, to be based on obligations and expectations. One day, I sat down and wrote her a message. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't try to make it sound nicer than it was. I was honest, and I told her exactly how I felt. I told her about the sacrifices I had made for her wedding, the emotional toll it had taken on me, and how her words had cut deeper than she realized. Sierra, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. I want to be honest with you, I felt hurt by what you said to me at the wedding. I've always been there for you, and I've always done whatever it took to help out. But after all I didn't feel like I was treated with the same care or respect. I don't need thanks, but I do need to feel valued, not just as someone who can take care of things. I don't know what to do from here, but I need you to understand how I feel. I sat there, staring at the screen, my finger hovering over the send button. Part of me wanted to just erase it, forget the whole thing, and move on. But another part of me knew I needed to say it. I needed to express how much I had been holding in for so long. I hit send. It was a few hours before Sierra responded. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I couldn't deny the nervousness creeping into my chest as I saw her name pop up on my phone. Her reply was short but sincere, "Sophia, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much I hurt you, and I don't know how to make it right. I was overwhelmed and I said something I regret. I should have been more mindful, and I wish I could take it back. Can we talk?" I sat there, staring at her message for a long time. Part of me wanted to pick up the phone right then and have that conversation. I could tell from her words that she didn't intend to hurt me, but I also couldn't ignore the sting of her initial comment. I had poured my heart into helping her, and the fact that she had treated me as nothing more than a workhorse still bothered me deeply. I knew this was the moment where I had to decide what kind of relationship I wanted with her moving forward. I could keep playing the role of the selfless cousin who gave without question, who did everything for everyone but rarely received anything in return. Or, I could choose a different path, one where I honored my own needs and emotions, where I expected respect from the people closest to me, where I wasn't afraid to say no or stand up for myself. After sitting with it for a while, I decided I wasn't ready to talk to her just yet. Not because I didn't want to fix things, but because I wasn't sure what the right conversation would even look like. I needed to take more time for myself. I needed space to process everything without feeling rushed to forgive or reconcile for the sake of family. Instead of responding right away, I put my phone down and went for a walk in the park. The fresh air helped clear my head. I spent the entire afternoon walking in circles, thinking about what had happened, the way I had been used, the way I had been taken for granted, the way I had allowed it to go on for so long. I thought about the way I had been conditioned to believe that family meant sacrificing everything, even when it was at the cost of my own well-being. I knew it wasn't just Sierra who had done this to me. It was the entire family. My Aunt Margaret, her husband, even my parents, they all relied on me, never asked for help, and always assumed I'd be there, no matter what. I had built this reputation for being the reliable one, the one who could handle it all, and over time, it had become an expectation. But what about my own expectations? Had I ever allowed myself to have any? As I walked, I realized that I had been living my life based on everyone else's needs, without ever stopping to consider my own. That had to change. I couldn't keep pouring from an empty cup, giving everything I had and expecting nothing in return. And I wasn't going to let anyone else make me feel like I was obligated to do so anymore. When I returned home that evening, I sat down again, staring at Sierra's message. I knew the ball was in my court now. How I responded would determine the future of our relationship. But as I sat there, I realized something else. I didn't need her apology to move forward. I didn't need her to validate me or justify my feelings. What I needed was to validate myself. I needed to take control of my own life and stop waiting for others to change or realize what they had done wrong. If I was going to move forward, it had to be for me, not because I was waiting for someone else to acknowledge my worth. So, I took a deep breath and started typing, "I appreciate your apology, Sierra. I can see that you didn't intend to hurt me, and I don't want to hold on to resentment. But I need to be honest, what you said at the wedding hurt, and it's something I need to work through. I've always been there for you, but I can't keep giving everything and expecting nothing in return. I need space right now to process everything. I hope you can understand that. I read it over a few times. It was honest, firm, and gave me the space I needed. I wasn't demanding anything from her, but I was setting boundaries, something I had never done before. I hit send. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Sierra didn't reply immediately, and I wasn't expecting her to. I knew this wasn't a conversation that could be fixed in a single text. But it was a step in the right direction. I had spoken my truth, and for once, I had done it without guilt or fear. The next few days were quiet. I focused on myself. I began working on hobbies I had put aside, like painting, something I hadn't done in years. I also spent time with my friends, people who didn't expect anything from me, people who valued me for who I was, not just what I could do for them. I started to feel like me again, not just the person who was always in the background, fixing things, running errands, and handling everyone else's problems. It felt good. It felt like freedom. But even with all this newfound space, the question of Sierra still lingered in the back of my mind. I wasn't sure what I wanted from her. Did I want her to truly understand how much she hurt me? Or did I just want her to acknowledge the boundaries I had set, to accept that I wasn't going to be her backup plan anymore? Eventually, Sierra did reach out. It wasn't a long message, just a simple, heartfelt note that said, "Sophia, I get it. I've been selfish, and I'm really sorry for how I treated you. I respect the space you need, and I hope we can talk more when you're ready." That was it. Short and to the point. And, honestly, that was enough for me. I didn't rush to reply. I wasn't sure where to go from here. Part of me wanted to dive into a deep conversation, to hash out every single feeling, to explain how much her words had hurt, how much I had given, and how much I expected in return. But another part of me knew that wasn't the answer either. What I needed wasn't an apology from her, it was the ability to stand on my own, to not rely on others to validate my worth. I had already started that journey on my own. I had begun to realize that my own self-worth didn't depend on how others saw me, or how much I did for them. I was valuable, whether or not anyone recognized it. And that was something Sierra, and the rest of my family, would need to understand, too. For now, I was taking my time. I was healing. And, for once, I was putting myself first. It was a long road ahead, but it was one I was ready to walk. As the days passed, I began to feel a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in a long while, I was taking care of myself, focusing on my own needs, and not letting anyone else's expectations define me. I was starting to find joy in the small things again, taking walks in the evening, reading books I had been putting off, and just breathing without the weight of constant obligation on my shoulders. But, of course, life had a way of throwing things back in my path when I least expected it. 2 weeks after Sierra's message, I was at home, sitting on my couch with a cup of coffee, when I received a call from my aunt, Margaret. Her voice was as pleasant as always, but there was something about it that made me uneasy. "Hi, Sophia. How are you? I've been meaning to check in on you." I know things were a little tense at the wedding, she said, her tone shifting just slightly. "Listen, we're having a family gathering this weekend, and Sierra's really hoping you'll come. It would mean a lot to her, and to the rest of us, of course." My stomach twisted. I had expected this call. It was only a matter of time before they would try to smooth things over, make me feel guilty for pulling away. I had no doubt in my mind that Sierra had been talking to my aunt, trying to paint me as the one who was being unreasonable. I could practically hear the pressure in her voice as she tried to play the mediator. "Thanks for calling, Aunt Margaret," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I appreciate it. But I'm not sure if I'm ready to come back to family gatherings just yet." There was a pause on the other end, followed by a soft sigh. "Well, I understand, but we really miss you, Sophia. I hope you'll reconsider. You know how much Sierra values you, Sierra values me?" I interrupted before I could stop myself. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Aunt Margaret, I'm sorry, but I think we need to have an honest conversation about how things went down. I'm not just a workhorse for the family. I'm not here to just fix things when they break. There was another long pause. I could tell she was taken aback by my bluntness. But I wasn't going to back down anymore. I've given so much to this family without ever being asked how I feel, or what I need. I've spent years putting others first, and I'm done doing that. Margaret was silent for a long time, and for a brief moment, I wondered if I had gone too far. But then she spoke, her voice much softer now. I didn't realize you felt this way, Sophia. We've always relied on you, yes, but it wasn't meant to take you for granted. I'll talk to Sierra. I think we all need to do better. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I let her words hang in the air. I'm glad to hear that, Aunt Margaret. But I still need space. I'm not sure what the future holds for us as a family, but I need to focus on myself for now. There was no immediate response from her side, and after a moment, she sighed. Okay. Take the time you need, Sophia. I hope we can work through this. After I hung up, I felt a strange sense of relief. I knew that this conversation wouldn't fix everything, but it was a step in the right direction. The family dynamic had always been warped, people relied on me, took me for granted, and never fully recognized the toll it had taken. It had to stop. The next few weeks were a turning point. I stuck to my boundaries, and my relationships with family members began to shift. As much as it pained me to admit it, I wasn't as important to them as they had made me believe. I had been an enabler. I had made myself indispensable, and in doing so, I had set myself up for disappointment. It was time to redefine my worth, not by what I could give, but by who I was. Sierra, in particular, began reaching out more frequently. At first, it was just small texts, asking how I was doing, checking in on my life. I could tell she was trying to make amends, but there was still something hollow in her tone. Her apology hadn't felt genuine to me, and I wasn't ready to let her off the hook just yet. I wasn't interested in playing the role of the forgiving cousin who immediately swept everything under the rug for the sake of family harmony. One evening, out of the blue, Sierra called me. Sophia, I know you're still upset with me. I get it. But I want to make things right. I really do, she said, her voice shaky. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I shouldn't have treated you like that. You've always been there for me, and I should have appreciated you more. I didn't say anything at first. I let her words hang in the air. She needed to feel the weight of her actions. I wanted her to understand that her behavior wasn't something I could just brush off because it was convenient for her. This wasn't about patching things up in time for a family event. This was about real, lasting change. You're right, Sierra, I said finally, my voice steady. You should have appreciated me more. And the thing is, I've been waiting for that appreciation for a long time. But I'm done waiting. I'm done putting everyone else first. There was silence on the other end. I could tell she didn't quite know how to respond to that. She was probably expecting me to say something reassuring, to tell her it was okay and that I would forgive her. But I wasn't there yet. I didn't know if I ever would be. But you are still family, I continued. And family doesn't mean I have to give up everything for you. I'm taking care of myself now, and I'm learning to say no when I need to. Her voice softened. I understand. I really do. I want to be a better cousin to you, Sophia. I just don't want to lose you. I paused, thinking carefully about my next words. I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't interested in being taken for granted anymore, but I didn't want to burn bridges completely. I'm not going anywhere, Sierra. But if you want me in your life, it has to be on my terms. I can't be your safety net anymore. I'm not your workhorse. There was a long pause on her end, and when she spoke again, her voice was quieter. I get it. And I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't reply immediately. I needed to hear her sincerity, but I also needed to let go of the past. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about getting a formal apology from her. It wasn't about fixing the relationship. It was about me taking back control of my own life. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "We'll see where things go. But for now, I'm going to take care of me." As the conversation ended, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had set my boundaries, I had spoken my truth, and I had refused to accept less than I deserved. Sierra and I may have been family, but the days of me being her unpaid emotional labor were over. And as I walked away from that chapter of my life, I realized that my true revenge wasn't in holding on to anger or bitterness. It was in reclaiming my own worth, in choosing myself for the first time, and in making it clear that I would never be anyone's workhorse again. That, in itself, was the sweetest victory of all.